Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Jeff Mendelson, and this is the One Big Tip podcast. My guest today is Steve Wiideman, CEO of Wiideman Consulting Group, an agency that works with globally recognized brands on ways to increase organic traffic using the best SEO and SEM practices. Having worked with brands like Disney, IBM, IHOP, and Skechers, Steve knows that by not optimizing your search engine marketing, you are leaving money on the table. When he's not working to help companies increase their Google ranking, Steve is also an adjunct professor at UC San Diego, Cal State Fullerton, and Fullerton Community College. And he is the author of the marketing textbook, SEO Strategy and Skills. So this is going to be one marketing nerd to another, just nerding out on all this stuff. Steve, thank you so much for joining me and welcome to
Thanks
the
for
show.
having me. Excited to talk shop with you.
Yeah, so this is going to be a lot of fun. So, going down the agency route and then becoming a college professor, how did that come about? Like, tell us a little bit about your story and
Sure.
how you became so awesome.
No worries. So I remember in 2010 when I left the agency world and decided, hey, I want to be a solopreneur. I said, in 10 years from now, I want to be a teacher. At the time, I wanted to teach American history. Turns out 10 years later, I don't know anything about American history. I enjoy it, but I can't teach something that I don't have background in. One day I get an email from someone saying, hey, we lost a teacher. Could you come in and basically take this class for us? This was at Cal State Fullerton. And so I went for it. I thought, hey, what the heck? I've always wanted to be a teacher. I'm going to give it a shot. Put some videos together and went through the whole Canvas experience, did the quizzes, set up some assignments. Had some really good fun with it. And the next thing you know, I'm getting mentioned to other schools, and before you know it, I'm teaching nearly 10 courses between three different online marketing programs, and I enjoy the process. It's self-paced. I get to give back to the industry. Doesn't really pay anything. In fact, the first paycheck I got, they had to call me and say, "Hey, are you going to come get this check?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's right. I get paid for this." So I really do it. I really do it because I enjoy working with other students. You know what's been interesting in that whole process of I think some 600 students I've had in the last 4 years, is that a lot of them will come back afterwards, not just for career advice, but to share their success and what they're doing in marketing. I'm now the marketing manager of such and such, and I remember being inspired in your class on some of the things that you taught me that helped me get this position. Or I've even gotten some clients, where a former student say, "Hey, I'm a marketing intern at this place," and I told them how smart you were at SEO, and I'm like, "Wow, I'm just experienced. I don't know if I'm smart or not," but it's been the catalyst to new business, new relationships, and now hundreds of students that think of me and will remember me, and will be part of our digital marketing community in the future. So it's well worth it, no matter what industry you're in. To just take a couple hours a week out of your life to do some adjunct teaching. I guarantee you, it's worth it, and all the things that you get out of it, except for the money part. There's again no money in it,
You
but
know
it's
what's
fun.
interesting about this though is that the landscape of search engine marketing and online marketing in general, it changes like every year, sometimes even an even a more compressed amount of time.
Yeah.
Things change, right? So first of all, like you have this textbook, right, that you wrote. How is that thing not obsolete at this point?
Right. We wrote it last year, and we're already doing our updates this summer. My co-author Scott Cowley, um, he's from University of Michigan. I remember writing the book the first time. I'm like, all right, here's 30 pages of amazing on technical SEO, and he comes back and he's like, all right, so I've taken this down to 10 pages for you. I'm like, oh no, what about all my content? It's like we got to make it so that it's consumable by somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience in it, and we also have to make it as evergreen as we can, and keep it up to date with some of the latest and greatest algorithms. The important thing with search marketing in particular is a lot of what we talk about is principle based. So there are tactics and there are strategies that hold the test of time. I mean, writing great content, coming up with really strong and helpful media and images and videos, that's never going to change. Getting other websites to mention and link to us, that's never going to change. Getting people to want to click on our results when we appear in a search result, That's never going to change. The only things that's really changed are the appearance of the search results, the ways that we can appear. Hey, our Twitter streams can now appear in Google again. That's amazing. Let's optimize our Twitter a bit so we get more of a presence in the in the universal search results. So there are those types of things that are ever changing and evolving. But the principles of what you do for content, for getting other websites to mention and link to you, and to get your listing to really stand out and get the clicks, those things never change. So that's why it's not as difficult. But again, the names of the current algorithms, they change BERT to MUM and Google and that sort of thing. So we want to make sure we mention those and talk about the evolution of those updates over time, and the way that search engines handle longer queries like RankBrain, the way that we can incorporate different types of code into our websites at the moment, to create rich results and to tell the search engines a little bit more about the content, using schema and other technology. In a couple of years from now, we're going to be doing some more things with voice and action events, so that users can interact with our website and start to untether themselves from these things and start to use more voice queries. We've been working on it probably for the good part of 8 years now, and it's a very, very slow evolution because businesses aren't teaching their consumers how to use and interact with their businesses on voice yet. But when they do and they start to, using some code and a little bit of work in the action console and Alexa skills section can enable a business to focus on search that is hands free. So I think those kind of things change and evolve, and being part of a textbook that has to change and evolve with it is fun. It's exciting and you get better. The more you teach something, the better you get, right? All the different learning skills, the reading, the writing, the listening, the teaching, all of those different types of ways to learn something contribute to you becoming better at what you do. I can read all day long, but if I don't use it and I don't teach it, it's gonna just slip away. So teaching something new keeps me sharp at all the things that are happening. When Google Analytics 4 became kind of the new standard, and Google said we're going to depreciate Google Analytics, I'm teaching SEO tools and analytics at UC San Diego, and so I'm like, oh my God, I've got to learn this GA4, even though I've hated it and I've procrastinated, because now I have to teach it. I can't just have the students use Universal anymore. So I did the Neo thing. I blocked out some time on a weekend, put my headphones on, and I just did what I needed to do to learn, the basic way to navigate around GA4. And you know what? As I got into it, it was fun. I got to nerd out a little bit. I got to test some things. What if I do this? What if I change my event name to this? What if I do? So if you're passionate about what you do in your industry and you like it, the change is part of what you enjoy about your job. It's something you embrace. It's something that you want to learn more. You want to be a sponge. You're looking at those blog feeds every day. You're reading, the experts' Twitter hashtags and posts and things that they're talking about. You're subscribed to the big forums in local search, like Local Search Forum, and subscribe to the things that's and great newsletters that your peers put out, because you're passionate and a sponge, for knowledge. So I think that's I don't think it's a challenge. I think it's an advantage that I have over other industries that don't change, because that could get very boring doing the same thing over and over and over again, whether you're a plumber or electrician, and you've mastered what you've done because you've done it 10,000 times. There's not a whole lot of new. There's not a whole lot of learning. There's not a whole lot of sharpening the saw. But in our industry, every day we're sharpening the saw, and that's fun. So if you're a forever scholar like I am, then the change is something you embrace, not something that you're afraid of.
I love that you touched on the evergreen part of what you need to focus on, because those fundamentals of writing great content and being able, and just thinking about what a search engine is for and why it was even important, 20 years ago versus now,
Yeah,
and how it's even more important today is, one of those things that's just like, wow, like if I don't stay on top of this, right, you could lose that flair, you could lose that skill. But at the same time, if you're employing the fundamentals in everything that you're doing, that's why you don't see a lot of MBA programs just in online advertising, right?
right.
It's just not there, because those programs are specifically focused on, knowing the fundamentals so that you can apply it to just about anything,
Right.
whether you are going to go into plumbing, or you're going to run a multinational, or even a digital marketing agency. Those are things that
Yeah.
you really do need to know about and understand, and all of that. So thank you so much for articulating that. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
I want to talk a little bit about the why, right? The
Hmm.
why we need this stuff, right?
Sure.
And the example that my go-to example here is, you're driving down the freeway, you see a billboard, and it's got some kind of call to action. At least a good billboard would have that, right? Is it like it has some kind of hook, and it tells you to do something. So here in South Florida, we have these big yellow billboards with this cute middle-aged woman on it, and it says, "Your wife is hot. You better call the AC guy." Right? Because,
Okay.
AC goes out over here, it's a big deal. So what happens is, like those types of advertisements, they really, first of all, they hit a nerve. They're kind of cheeky in that they, like people immediately get, what the advertisement is, and what I'm trying to do with it. And then, it provokes an emotion, right? It
Hmm.
provokes an emotion to, like, yeah, you're right. I really better get my AC fixed. Right. And these billboards are all over the place, right?
I love the flower one that says flowers better than Viagra. I was like, oh my God, that's genius.
Right.
Such a great billboard. Anyway,
So,
but you're right. It stimulates emotion for sure.
what's the interesting thing about search engine searches is that you're displaying results to someone at their exact moment of need, right?
Hmm.
So Google wrote a short book about it. You can download it for free, called ZMOT, the Zero Moment of Truth.
Yep.
And what happens is, like, no one's going to type in dog grooming in Miami for their health, right? No one's going to type that in for funsies. They're going to type
Sure.
it in because they actually need a dog groomer who happens to be in that specific area,
Or
right?
they're an SEO and they're trying to see where they rank.
Exactly, right? And, like, along that same vein, I had this experience where I was driving with my kids, and they're like, "Papa, we're hungry." I'm like, "Okay, where do you want to go? Find me a sushi place." So they found me a sushi place that was like 2 miles up the road,
Right.
right? But out of the corner of my eye, I spied a sushi place that was right in the corner. And I asked them, "Well, what about this one? Right? Why are you directing me to that one? Why don't we go to this one that's closer?" To, like, "Well, it wasn't in my search results."
Hmm.
Boom. That's it. You don't exist. Right? You do not exist. Like, at that particular moment, that sushi restaurant did not exist for me or for anyone else.
Right.
And my business went to the one that did show up, or at least took the time to claim their listing, and things like that.
It
How
reminds me of a circumstance with a restaurant chain we worked with during the pandemic, right? During the pandemic, nobody was looking for restaurants near me or directions near me. Everything was locked down. How do you keep the lights on when buildings are closed and you can't go indoors anywhere? And so we introduced delivery and takeout pages. So if somebody was doing restaurant delivery near me, restaurant takeout near me, that our restaurant chains could appear for those queries and keep the kitchen lights on by offering off-premises takeout and delivery options. And if we hadn't created those pages, thousands of jobs, cooks and and the folks that work in the restaurants wouldn't have work to do. So it was, and then when the jobs were needed again, when things started opening up, we created a jobs page. So if you did a search for restaurant jobs near me, there's a page on every single location now. So they had over 52,000 applications, within a couple months of launching these pages, because we were solving a problem during a really interesting time where people weren't searching the same way. And I think that built awareness among the entire business community that we can't expect that all of our customers are always going to just come to our location. There could be another pandemic. There could be something else. There could be wars and all sorts of weird things that are going to happen. And our job as business owners is to sort of think about ways that we can sustain our business during those weird times. And I think that's where search can come into play. Like you said, if you've taken the time to just claim your Google Maps profile, you're going to get that traffic where the guy who's not doing that gets passed on the road. And if you're a restaurant that hasn't created pages for delivery and takeout and specific things that you do differently than other competitors of yours, then you're going to be missing out on a lot of free traffic from search engines.
I love how you articulated that, because the search engine was basically built to deliver this traffic to the right place,
Right.
right? It's all about relevancy, and it's all about, like that need that you have right now, which is why,
Mhm.
like if you need to choose between doing Google ads, right, which
Yeah.
are based on an actionable sequence of what you're looking for and your geographic location and other habits that you may have fed the search engine earlier, or if you want to do it, for example, on Facebook, which is based more
Sure.
off of demographics and affinities and
Mhm.
rather than location, right? How
Or if
do
you're
you
building
help?
around a digital marketing campaign, you're doing all three of those things.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So you wanna make sure that you're covering all these bases, right? You wanna make
Mhm.
sure that you're covering based on intent, but also on affinity, right? How do you help, businesses understand that you really do need to be in both these places and not just employ one, or not just employ, the desire or the need to be, number 1 on Google for whatever niche you happen to be,
All
and
your
sort
eggs
of
in one basket. Yeah.
right, and sort of explain to them like, "Hey, there are other things that you can do here that could be, if not just as effective, even more effective." How does that look in your world?
Sure, and we've seen that every other type of media that you do, every type of advertising that you do, can play a role in your SEO. We see that every single time one of our brands, large brand accounts, runs a media campaign, our SEO goes up. We see people doing branded searches. We see them searching for us again because they saw an ad somewhere online, whether it was a search ad or an ad somewhere else. They all play in and support each other. The way that we've been trying to evangelize for having a multi-medium digital marketing strategy in play is by holding the publisher accountable to your cost per acquisition goals. So go to your publisher and say, look, I'm willing to spend some money here, but I need to make sure I see results. So I'm going to put some tags on my ads, or you're going to help me put some tags on my ads so that I can look at my analytics and know that this is performing for me better than other types of advertising I'm doing. Otherwise, I'm going to reallocate my budget and put it all where I'm getting the most action. Maybe it's Facebook, maybe it's TikTok, maybe it's search ads, maybe it's Bing, maybe it's Twitter. Who knows? Wherever you seem to get the best results, and results are going to vary based on the type of business you have. If you're e-commerce, to me, results is going to be ROI, right? What's my ROI? Since I can track dollars and cents and even drill in to campaigns and know how much my profit is going to be on each sale. Maybe it's return on ad spend, right? What kind of return are you getting on your ad spend? Maybe it's your cost per lead, your lead business. You're not really selling anything online. You're an attorney, you're a CPA, you're a chiropractor, right? You're looking at your cost per lead goal. So work with each of those different publishers and say, I'm going to continue spending with you every month as long as my cost per lead and the quality of leads aligns with what my business objectives are. And in doing that, it makes it much easier, because then it's you look at your reports every quarter and you say, okay, here's my Google analytics, and I go through all the different campaigns that I have. One campaign is going to be search or organic. One's going to be well, not necessarily. We can kind of count that separately. One's going to be paid CPC. One might be social ads. One might be email campaigns. And then you're going to scroll over to that column and you're going to see exactly what your cost per lead or what your actual return on ad spend is going to look like. So I think that's the way to evangelize for a broader internet marketing strategy. But I don't recommend anybody doing it for the first time on their own. I do think it's, if you go into it alone, you got to hold that publisher accountable to what your goals are, and they'll give you a rep if you work with the right people or send enough requests. What I recommend doing is getting with somebody who's an expert and having them help you set up and establish what your strategy should be, how to measure it, and then pass the baton back over to you. Yeah, you'll spend a couple $100s for that initial consult with whoever it is, an email marketing expert, a paid social expert, a paid search expert, an SEO expert. You'll pay a few $100s to have that person give you a bit of a strategy. But in doing so, you're not going in blind and you're not wasting money trying to learn, right? You can skip the learning process and go straight to trying to get the most from each of those platforms. So get that strategist to come in help you create an action plan and a tracking mechanism. So that way, when you do hold those publishers accountable, you have a point of reference, and you'll feel like, great, I didn't have to spend 6 months trying to learn how to do paid ads. I actually went to an expert. They set everything up for me or walked me through it. And now, I can focus on the ROI piece of it. I think that answers your question, right? Of how do you get them convinced not to just do SEO? And you mentioned that being number one in Google, and unfortunately, there are some brands where that's still important, and there are measurable ways to tie in a specific broad, we call a head term, to revenue. One client in particular loses, I think, $115,000 a day for every day that he's not number one. Where he's number two, he loses like $115,000 a day for that head term because there's so much volume for it and it's so important to their business. So there are circumstances where it is important, but 90% of the time, it's more about just growing your visibility, the number and the array of keywords that you're appearing for, that the girth of content you're going to create to solve problems that your customers have will eventually grow the number of keywords that you start to get traffic from. And then you worry less about being number one, and you worry more about making sure that there's consistent growth. And any month where your SEO is kind of plateaued, you go back to your webmaster, to your content writer, your social media outreach person, you get them in a huddle and you say, team, we need to make sure every month we're growing. So let's look at our key pages that we know are important to us. Let's look at the key pages of our competition, and let's make sure every month we're improving the quality of our content, the helpfulness of it, the visibility of our content off our website, and how users are interacting with our content within search results, not just blue links and black text, but the images that should appear in the image carousels, the videos that should appear there, the questions and answers. And people also asked, let's make sure we're appearing everywhere we possibly can in paid and organic to get more of that real estate that's available, and that every month we're doing something to make our pages convert better, to keep them on our page and not going back to Google and choosing a competitor, so that we're sending the right signals every month about patterns. Our pattern is that every month we're getting better. And if we're getting better every month, you're going to see growth, and you don't have to worry about tactics. You can focus again on those grounding principles of what we do in SEO, and put more of your time into the creative things that will get people to want to link to your content, the studies, the surveys, the expert interviews, the research and data and findings that you publish that the industry will link to make you more of an authority on a topic and build brand awareness. That's where you should be spending your time, not trying tactics and just doing SEO or doing social media, but instead, lay it out with an actual strategy. And once that strategy is in play, just make sure every month you go back and say, team, how are we doing? But digital marketers like us, like you and I, take everything on ourselves. We put everything on us. And when everything's on us, you know what we end up doing? Nothing, because we have too much and we don't want to think about all the things that we should be thinking about. But if we let go of that and we delegated and we held other team members accountable, maybe it's a college student we hired, maybe it's an intern, maybe it's a junior marketer who's spending a couple hours a week helping you. Whoever it is, get someone on the team that can support you a few hours a week so that you can delegate off that accountability and only hold yourself accountable to that monthly meeting, and to holding your team accountable to seeing growth every month. That was
Amazing.
a lot. Sorry.
Yeah, that was a lot. No, but the question I wanted to ask you though is, when you have a new business that approaches you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like they didn't have a presence before, and they know they need to make some kind of splash.
Yeah.
What do you recommend for them? Do they, go organic first, go paid
Mm-hmm.
first, go local first? Like how would you guide a new business that comes into
Sure.
your agency?
It's kind of funny. We had this idea that we would create a T-shirt that said, um, "Am I an SEO consultant?" And on the back it says, "It depends." And this is one of those circumstances where it depends. If you are in a very competitive um, industry. Maybe you're in mortgage and real estate and refinance. Maybe you're a florist or a locksmith or a payday loan company. Who knows? You're in a super, super competitive industry and you're a new business. Then I probably wouldn't initially put my time into SEO. I think I'd probably circle back on it. And what I would do instead is I would build relationships with similar verticals so that other people are promoting me, so I get some referral business to kind of to make it through. If you get enough referral business to make it through, then you can pivot over to SEO, start on some of those broader competitive keywords that are going to take sometimes 2 or 3 years to rank well for, because they're that competitive and you've got to unroot that top, listing. So start with those competitive keywords and then build out a lot of supportive content underneath those over the course of 6 to 12 months, so that down the line, your competitor has one page to compete with your section of content. You'll be more helpful. You'll appear for a broader array of keywords. You'll flank the competition by getting more longer tail queries where the intent is very specific versus broad, where they're still kind of browsing and shopping. So I think that's how I would approach it. Is if you're a new business and you're in a competitive industry, start by focusing on referrals and partnerships, and then dive into SEO. If you're in a business that's not very competitive, and we have one right now we just started working with that we've really enjoyed, called Rent-A-Romper, and they've got this really cool thing where if you're a mom or a parent and you want to kind of do some fashion exchange and have different outfits for your baby, you can do that through their website. Well, no one's searching for that. No one knows that kind of stuff exists. So if you're in a business where there's not a huge demand, part of what you need to do is build some brand awareness and start looking at keywords that are a little bit off from what people would be searching for, because no one's searching for you yet. So if you've got something new and innovative that you're doing that nobody is looking for, be the one that creates that demand over the next couple years. But while you're doing that, figure out some ways that you can solve problems for your audience. For Rent-A-Romper, it's kind of probably going to be around things around baby fashion, right? Topics that are interesting to the target audience. Drive them in through that kind of content. Come up with some really fun interviews that you do with experts in baby clothes, and do these interviews and share them in social media and drive people back to subscribe to your email list, so that in a year from now you've got 100,000 moms subscribed to your newsletter and to your blog posts, and then at that point they'll know who you are and you've created a demand, and now there's probably 20,000-30,000 people a month searching for what you do because they heard about you through somebody who subscribes to you. So I think there's two different approaches, one in a competitive industry, and one where you're kind of creating your own industry with something new, unique, and innovative.
What a great answer, because basically what you're painting here is that you're helping build the awareness of what this company does,
Right.
and also finding like some ancillary products or some ancillary search terms that
Hmm.
will allow you to stick your big foot in the door, right? And that really that can really help. But the event horizon for making that effective can be a little long, and
Yeah.
especially for new businesses that are just starting out, like they don't necessarily know what their marketing budget should be,
Sure.
right? And and then to tell them, well, yeah, we can get you ranked, but it's going to take I don't know, a year or so in order to happen. Oh, by the way, you need to be paying me for all this time that you're
Yeah.
not ranked,
It's
right?
hard. Yeah. It's a long run.
And
That's the challenge with it.
that's a tough sale, right? But if you can demonstrate value, if you can demonstrate some wins, or you can do it in a layered or phased
Mhm.
approach, then you can really make it happen. So I think that's,
Right.
there's there are a lot of ways to make that happen.
Hmm.
In search engine marketing, is just knowing which tool to utilize at which time, right? And that's really
And
that's
there's
really
so many of them too, Jeff. There's so it's like thousands of tools that you can use online to study competition, to some of the easy things that you can do for free, or just go to the competitor websites, and then type in a /sitemap, SITEMAP .xml, and download this big list of all the pages that your competitors have. Maybe take the top 10 competitors and do that same thing, put them in one big list, and then go through row by row and say, is this page something I should have on my website or not? Right. And then you look at those competing pages and just make sure yours is slightly better in some ways, unique in some way. I think that's a really easy, free way to start with an SEO and a content strategy. It's just not reinventing the wheel, doing what's working for the competition. Starting there, you'll start to see some traffic come in, and then you can go back to your, maybe in 6 months from now or a year from now, go back to your free Google Search Console dashboard and drill into each page to see all the different search terms that Google's displayed your page for. then you're going to find all sorts of new opportunities. You're like, well, this keyword doesn't necessarily match up to this page, but I don't really have a page for it. Maybe I should make that a task. I'll create a page for that search term because I don't really have content that satisfies that query. So you learn from the data that you already get from those free tools, and that helps you to build your sitemap over time. So in 2, 3, 12 years from now, you'll end up with hundreds of pages that solve problems that your customers are looking for. And you're like, wow, I went from 700 visits a month to somewhere like 50,000 a month, over the last 5 years, just by continuously going back into that data, looking for new opportunities, monitoring what my competition's doing, and having a predictable content roadmap to continue chipping away at every day.
What a great strategy. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Sure.
Steve, can you please let everyone know how they can learn more about your company
Sure.
and how they can reach out to you directly if they
Of
if
course.
they want to learn
So
more?
there's two things that I think might be helpful for people who are finding an interest in this whole SEO thing. We have this Academy of Search that you could go to. I have like a $600 program in there, but because you took the time to watch and hang out with me, just use code SEO Steve and you'll get free access to it. We're going to be evolving it soon, and as long as you have access to it before we start making a bunch of changes, you'll continue to get free access to it. Again, it's academyofsearch.com, SEO Steve. I'm SEO Steve on all the different social channels. So Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all the places. That's where you can find me. If you want to tag our team and ask anyone on the team some questions about your keyword rankings, about technical SEO, about content, about anything we talked about today, it's Wiideman everywhere. Wiideman. Happy to troubleshoot and see what we can do. I grew up helping small businesses. That's how I exist today, as I did a lot of free work. So we still embrace that. And we still embrace the small business community. So if you feel like, yeah, I can't afford this consultant or this consultancy, throw that away. We want to help everybody. So please, if there's something that we can do to just help you troubleshoot and look at a page and figure out why it's not ranking, hit us up. That's what we live for. So happy to help.
Thank you for sharing that. That's I think that's going to be an amazing amount of value for the listeners to actually get out there and, think a little bit harder about their search engine strategy and how they can make it work for them.
You bet.
Steve, thank you for joining me today. This has been a lot of fun. I love nerding out on this stuff, and I really appreciate you taking the time, to help articulate this.
It's
Thank you for
absolutely
joining me.
my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on the show.